You know, when I was in design school, and I was first, you know, in one of my very early product design classes, and I had a teacher that said, you know, engineers work at machine-machine interface. How many gears, how many ball bearings? Designers work at man-machine interface. What's it feel like? What's it look like? What is that interaction between you and this thing? And what fiction are you selling in the case of a game? So this place was chock full of guys that were really, really good at orchestrating that entertainment experience. There are several schools of design in terms of pinball machines. You know, there are games, there are fast, what are considered to be fast-flowing games. There are stop-and-go games, you know, there are games that are some combination of both. I'm from the fast-flowing school of design, only because those are the machines I liked. Steve Ritchie mentored me a lot when I was starting, and when he saw that my playfield was leaning in that direction, I think he understood. You know, there was some kindred spirit thing happening, and so he helped me in that direction. As a contrast, Pat's games are, you know, stop-and-go games. He likes to hold the ball and you know, give you a show or do something, and then you know, they're transitory as opposed to, you know, moving.
As much of what happens in a good pinball machine, in my mind, is what happens when you miss what you're flipping at as when you hit what you're flipping at. And so if when you miss what you're flipping at, you still manage to hit something, and it feels like you got something anyway, you can turn to your friends and go, I meant to do that, right? I meant to do that. Whereas in a bad pinball machine, if you flip and there's nothing there for you to hit but a wall or a post or something hideous, then you turn to your friends and they laugh at you. They go, you missed. You meant to shoot for the other thing. And so, and also what happens, here's another thing most people don't understand. When you're designing the layout of a game, what happens when you do hit something? After I hit this thing, where does the ball go? Okay, I can't have it just come back in your face and kill you. Okay, I have to make sure that what you've done feels supportive and pleasant and all those other things. It's a little different now, but at Williams, the theme of a pinball machine was left entirely or almost entirely up to the game designer. When I first started at Williams, you didn't really even convince management at all. They sort of trusted you. They'd say, okay, well, you're going to do that, fine, go ahead, do it, you know. They'd ask questions. They'd say, well, how's that going to be cool, or what are you going to do? But, you know, there was no, you know, process that you had to go through to convince people that what you were doing was cool. You know, it was a we pay you a lot of money, we trust that you're going to make us money, so go do something.
Pinball is inherently sort of an abstract device. We used to laugh because there's a guy in the business that once went up to Steve and asked him in high speed, he just got done playing Steve's high speed pinball, and he said to Steve, so Steve, I'm trying to understand, am I the ball? and Steve said, you know, to this day we laugh about, you know, are you the ball? You know, and so pinball is inherently an abstract device, right? And my vision, at least the way I like to do it, is I like to try to take some of that abstract out. I like the entire thing to be this comprehensive, theme-consistent throughout world.
Once I get the major objects that I want in a game, and once I've developed a rough idea of where we're going with the playfield itself, we then start model building. And we start building models of the toys that are going in the game, example, things hand. And we also begin building what are called whitewoods of the game. A whitewood is simply a piece of wood with no art on it, which is why it's called a whitewood, which is the playfield that we're trying to model after I've designed it. And so we go through an iterative process of we put together a play field, we physically build one, we flip at it, we invariably scream at it as being hopeless, and I begin to modify what it is I've designed at that point. Now, at the same time, the software group is there, and the software group takes those whitewoods and they begin programming the game with you.
Something needs to choreograph all of the blinky lights and the coils firing and sound effects. When a ball hits a target, something happens. Something has to make that happen and make it all happen together. The software also is what tells the story or guides the player through the story as they do this or that.
Software also does things for operators. It collects stats for, ball time and game time and how much money the game has made. And the software is also responsible for making sure the game doesn't catch fire. If something goes wrong, like if a ball settles on a switch that's supposed to activate a magnet, the software should be smart enough not to leave that magnet turned on as long as the ball is on the switch.
So while the software group and I are working on the rule set, how do I build a rule set that's a reward rule set? That I'm doing something, and I feel like I'm doing better. How is there sort of a punishment for me doing bad, that wants me to do better? How is it that if I'm just flailing at the game still manages to give me something that doesn't make me feel like a total loser? For my own case, the thing we first work on in a game is always multi-ball, because to me, multi-ball is the cornerstone of a pinball machine. It's the reason why the average person walks up to a game and wants to play. How do I get the game to get more than one ball on the playfield at once? It's very exciting to most people. They've got to deal with a lot. In the case of modern pinball machines, we've got the dot matrix display, which is what's going on. So I'm working with dot matrix artists. At the same time, I've got a sound person that I'm working with, and he says, when you run into the front of this bookcase, what should it sound like? Should it sound like a 55-gallon drum? Should it sound like a thud? Should it sound like whatever? As all this is going on, there is an artist, a graphic artist, whose whole job is to create the cabinet art, whose job is to create the backglass, whose job is to create the playfield.
Maybe 3 months before production starts, we put a game, what we call at the bottom of the stairs, and most of the company had access to that area, so the game already started getting a lot of plays. And there was always the design team's phone number printed on the game, so if anything happened, there's a phone right there and people usually call you up. And in fact, after putting a game at the bottom of the stairs, the one phrase that would give everyone nightmares is the phrase, "I was playing your game at the bottom of the stairs," and, because it's usually followed by some intricate little convoluted thing. So, I was playing, all of a sudden it kicked all these balls out. Well, what mode were you in? Well, I don't know. It's like, well, all right. Then usually a couple of weeks after we put a game at the bottom of the stairs, we'd usually put a game out in an arcade, and that was another another big test time. We'd usually know the people who run the arcade, so they would tell us ball hang-ups or software crashes and so on.
I and every other game designer in the world, no matter whether it's video or pinball or whatever, has a balancing act they have to create. The balancing act is that you have to create a game for a wide spectrum of people, and you have to create a game that keeps their interest for as long as possible. In the case of pinball, far more people who are not accomplished pinball players play pinball machines than do accomplished people who play pinball machines. We put things in games for the accomplished people that are at the outer reaches of what they're able to accomplish. And it's necessary to put those in the game, but they are not the end-all and be-all of why we design a set of rules in a pinball machine. Any pinball machine that is predicated around the 6 people in the world who are that good at playing pinball is a failure.